Hey, what's going on, crew? Welcome to another episode of the 20 Percenters, where we focus on what matters: health, wealth, relationships, and time. I've got the immense pleasure of sitting down with Letitia Frye, author of No Reserve. We have run around each other for a couple of years now, and I've watched you work the room at a handful of Nicole's events. And before I got to know you, I was like, there's no way that this woman is naturally this amped up all the time, and I would see you, shaking hands, meeting and greeting, work the room, do the thing, and then go right back to the networking part of what you do and introducing people and connecting. You're very natural at that thing, and it's incredible to watch. And as I've gotten to know you, it's become very obvious, as we've talked, that is just your essence. That's who you are. How did you get into the auction game?
So the auction game was divine intervention. I mean, honestly, I used to say it was a fluke, and the more I researched it, it actually wasn't a fluke. It literally was like I was directed at, as if we were watching, Clash of the Titans, and the gods were moving things around. That's what it felt like, because I truthfully had granted, whenever I heard an auction, something kind of boiled up in my belly. I used to be a model, and I used to model the lifestyle tent at Barrett-Jackson. We'd get our credentials. I'd go early to hear the auctioneers. I mean, I loved it, but I'd never seen a woman do it. I had no intention of it. It wasn't even on the radar. And at the time, my best friend, who was my college roommate at USC, was chairing an event when they just opened Weston Kierland. That tells you how long ago it was, about 15 years ago. And I had a children's clothing store. I was a part-time morning news personality on ABC 15, still modeling, and married, country club life. Thought I had it all figured out, just had my second child, and she asked me to be the MC. And so I went to be the MC, and then she said, you know what, my auctioneer didn't show up. I have 4 items, so I need you to do it. And I was like, do what? So she's like, well, you're a theater major. I've seen you play everything else. I want you to get on there and go do it. So I got up, and it's funny, I'll never forget it. I had a dune buggy, I had a trip to Hermosa Beach, I had a flat screen TV, and I had a puppy. You'll never forget it. They say you never forget your first time, but in this case, it's true. So, and I knocked it out of the park. And I think that it was just for people who were like, whoa, I never thought a woman could do this. Yeah. So in all honesty, I thought it was just my little ruse, and it went on. But then my modeling agent started getting calls for it. I started bumming around doing it for free with someone that was doing it, and I really, really liked it. I couldn't explain what was happening. My soul came alive. Sure. And then I was asked to volunteer. Now, there's where it gets weird, because I didn't know this till I got an award named from St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. They get an award for me about a year or so ago. And I didn't know till I got that award, and they did their due diligence and researched it, how much divine intervention it was. Okay. So there was a family here, Nikki Maillard. Nikki's family, I was casual friends with them. We were in the same kind of country club life, but Nikki had cancer, and unfortunately, he had been treated both at Phoenix Children's and then at St. Jude, and he lost his battle. Okay. So his mom really wanted to do something to give back to St. Jude in particular, because they're never asked to pay for anything, and she felt that they gave him the most hope. So I didn't get it, and so I volunteered my time, so I thought, and I went ahead and I killed it. And at this point, I'd had some cards. I'd gone through auction school. Okay. And one of those cards went to L.A., and unbeknownst to me, at this time I was divorced. Now I have 5 jobs. I'm making $21,064. I'm in the poverty line. I'm doing whatever I can. My whole life is in a different space. And then at the biggest celebrity event in LA for St. Jude, I get a call. One of those cards went there, and I'm like, yeah. It was like a Tuesday, and the event was that Saturday. And they're like, you think you could do it? And I'm like, yeah, but then I was thinking to myself, why don't you have an auctioneer? And they're like, oh, we do. We have the largest auctioneer from Sotheby's. We do this every other year, but she was hit by a car yesterday and her jaw was wired shut. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Can't work a room with a wired jaw.
No. And so I went into LA and I did this, and for the first time in their history, I made $1 million with 3 items and an ask. So my career took off. But if you backtrack, when I said I volunteered for Nikki Maillard's family, it turns out that wasn't true either. I thought it was. Turns out a very famous auctioneer whose son was good friends with the Maillards was supposed to be that auctioneer. He got diagnosed with throat cancer
Get out of
the week before that event. So, I mean, the one thing that will stop an auctioneer is taking away their voice or throat.
Sure.
One person gets throat cancer. He did not survive.
Right.
The next girl gets hit by a car and her jaw is wired shut. I have no idea if she made it or not. But so when I say divine intervention, I mean, it really was, which kind of freaks you out because you think, I better not screw this up. People lost their lives so I could actually get in this game. So I think that that's part of it, and I'm glad I didn't find out the truth of that. I knew about the car accident early on, but I'm glad I didn't find out about the other till later because I think, again, it would have been like, wow, I mean, maybe I'm really supposed to be something more than I'm trying to be. Maybe, you know, I'm always one of these people that believes, why would you be average when you can be exceptional? Right. But I'm also always setting the bar so much higher for myself constantly.
Sure.
So I think that would have done more.
Does it blow your mind when somebody else tells your story and then from you get the outside in perspective of all that has actually transpired and you get to connect the dots in like this out of body experience?
It's so wild that you brought this up. So as you mentioned, No Reserve is a book that's being published by Sound Wisdom Publishing. This is the legit deal. You know, there's a lot of self-publishing and whatnot. And again, divine intervention. I mean, I don't even know how this happened to me. But I got the final manuscript, and I'm always on a plane. So I was on the plane, I'm always on a plane. I had a couple days to get some edits in, and as I was reading my own stuff that had been edited down and moved around, and so the story's being told more towards the way the reader would tell it as opposed to how I lived it. Right. I really was having a hard time. I mean, I laughed out loud a couple times. Literally, I cried a bit, and I was kind of looking around like, I'm actually reading about myself. You know, it's hard. You know, it was hard for me to choke down some of those pills because I lived it. Right. And I won't say that I was always at my best self. You know, and that's a hard pill to swallow, but a necessary one. 100%. So yeah, it's cool. You know, it comes out. You know, this is all mainstream. So I got the final edit today. I have till Monday to finish. Okay. It goes into pre-sales in the spring, and then we launch into Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the Hudson bookstores, all that stuff by late summer.
Can I get a signed copy?
Absolutely. Okay. You know it, because I loved this. This was one of my reads that also, if you guys haven't read this, read it. And the funniest part about this for me, I just have to break into his book for a second, is that I love talking about something weird, that I'm reading the whole first kind of forward from this guy, and I'm thinking, I gotta meet this guy. This guy is so my kind of person. And then I get to the end, and I'm like, no wonder I know him. So that's what I love, is that, you know, what you talk about and what we're doing on this podcast, it's amazing how much similarity certain people have. And you want to get to know them. You know, you want to. But it is weird, back to your point, to watch it from the third party perspective, so to speak. I've always envisioned, like, I don't know if you've ever seen this, and I've always visualized things in my life. I don't know why. I've always thought maybe someday my life would make a good movie. But I thought I'd be the person with the baseball cap in the back corner, kind of down with the popcorn like this, kind of looking at people's reaction, going, oh my goodness, that's my life. You know? And it feels like that with the book, or even sometimes with articles coming out, or people's perception of me. I've been a fly on the wall and heard people saying, hey, do you know that auctioneer? And they start talking about me, and I'm like, I'm sitting right here. Oh, wow. And they don't realize it's me. Sure. You know, so it's a little weird. It's a little weird.
It's always interesting when you're confronted with your celebrity.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that word yet. I'm not. I would call notoriety.
Okay, there you go.
I'm comfortable with my notoriety because I have created a brand, and that's something that I mentor and teach very much, is that everybody has their own brand. And that is something that instead of just pushing what you do, you should be creating a brand, because that's what really elevates you to the next level. So for me, definitely the notoriety. I mean, there is some celebrity that comes with it. Again, I'm not really comfortable with that yet, but notoriety, and the fact that I have pushed that brand, and that brand has a presence. But it also brings up the fact of what you thought. The brand has a presence. So there's the brand, and then there's me. Right. You know? And so it's interesting. You know, I do volunteering for all of my clients, and it was a girl, actually I see her next Tuesday, that I met while volunteering at a camp for LGBTQ youth to better understand my client and give back. And it's funny because when I go to these camps, whether they're cancer camps or whatever they are, I have no makeup on. I have a baseball cap on. I get up at the crack of dawn and go run like 12 miles through the mountains. I'm sweaty, you know, all that. So that's a little bit in contrast to the person that you've gotten to know on the stages. It's networking and doing that. So she's very funny. Her name is Tuesday, and she said, it's kind of cool because I get to know Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, so it kind of goes into that celebrity notoriety. It's cool, but it's like that's Spider-Man. I am Peter Parker, and they're right here, you know? So it's kind of cool to let people see both sides of that, you know?
Well, that's, Illinice is sitting behind the camera here, and she manages all of my social that's not me.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's a big job.
And that's the distinction.
It's a brand.
As we move through our leaders forum with 20%ers, and we get through the building, helping people build brands and stuff like that, and kind of work through that process. There's who you are.
Yep.
Help people get to know you, what you represent, your mission, your vision, all that kind of good stuff. And as that evolves, then you have to kind of make this segue into this compartmentalization.
Exactly.
And create that Peter Parker Spider-Man dynamic.
Which is interesting because that's what, and I'm not sure what your book did for you, because the book for me, what it's doing is we're exposing Peter Parker.
Yeah.
So, everybody knows Spider-Man running around in her heels and, known as America's auctioneer and running around with Alice Cooper and kissing Johnny Depp on the cover of crazy magazines.
I looked that up, by the way.
I know.
The shitstorm you got for that.
You have no idea. Talk about a fandom. People don't understand. That's a millennial thing. You guys will understand fandoms. When you get 50 years and plus, people are like, what's a fandom? I'm like, it's like a beehive you don't piss off, So, yeah, we know all about that. But the cool thing about the book, and our dear friend Tammy Fellows is one of the first people to have jumped on in her November issue of I can't say North Scottsdale Lifestyles, really diving into that other part, to that part that people don't really know about me, which is what the book's going to do. It's really going to expose the underbelly of that other person that what I went through while creating that brand that was not pretty, what was happening on the other side.
Sure.
And this sort of accidental way that I was able to, I've been knocked down and knocked down and knocked down, but I just keep getting up. Rocky is my favorite film.
Okay.
It is my ringtone.
My daughter was born to Eye of the Tiger.
Are you kidding? Of course. No, I don't know that. She was born to Eye of the Tiger or conceived in Eye of the Tiger.
Bullshit. So, Nicole had back-to-back C-sections, and when Cameron was getting ready to be delivered, they're like, she's sedated and spread out on the gurney like that, and they're like, so what kind of music do you want to listen to?
Oh, you're kidding me.
And she was like, 80s rock. Like, all right, cool. Right? So they get started with the procedure, and
no way.
Yeah. So my daughter.
I was running to that as I came to this
nice.
podcast.
There we go. There's that serendipity for you.
Yeah.
So Cameron was born. No shit. The soundtrack of her life,
is
song 1, is Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah, no pressure, kid. No pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah, I saw that movie when I was a little girl, and it changed my life. That and Enter the Dragon. Both of those completely changed my life. And I keep Rocky as my ringtone. In fact, my son said it for me to remind me to never give up. Like, to remind me, hey, Mom, you are the Rocky of the world, So it always goes off at the craziest time. I forget it. And people think I have it just set to one person. I'm like, no, that's
everybody.
Everybody's.
Yeah.
That's just everybody. It reminds me.
So explain where No Reserve comes from.
Sure, absolutely. So being in the auction business, and now I run around on stages with famous people and all that. That's not how you start out,
Right.
You got to put your time in. So I started out, I'm bilingual, I speak English and Spanish, and so I started out doing predominantly Latino mechanic salvage title vehicle sales on 27th and Baseline in 117-degree heat on an Apple box with a microphone, half in Spanish and English, for $100 a day. And so I really cut my time in, and I started at the bottom and liquidating warehouses, chanting 9 hours a day, 900 items, 2 10-minute breaks, $100 a day, whatever I had to do.
Holy shit.
Sweating it out. Yep.
Okay.
Me and the boys, just sweating it out. And in that term, then eventually I kind of evolved into real estate. And real estate, I think, is the best way to explain No Reserve.
Okay.
Because it's where I found at this point you're getting into high-end real estate, and it's like they felt like they were gambling, but they didn't get it. So the No Reserve is like an idea, and I explain this in my book that if you came to me, let's say you're in a $2 million house, and unfortunately something in your life, a divorce, an illness, something is disrupted, you need to get rid of the house faster than you would on traditional real estate.
Sure.
So, you know, you're not going to sit around and wait a year and a half and hope that you get 1.3 million. So you put it to auction. But the problem is you really can't take under $1 million.
Right.
If you say to the auctioneer, well, then I need to put a reserve on this at $1 million, I'm going to tell you it's a huge mistake, because what that means is going to be two people that show up, probably your neighbor who's curious, and maybe one other person, probably the real estate agent that's going to convince you to go with them.
Right.
No one's going to come because you're telling them, look, I'm going to go to auction, meaning I got to go fast, but I'm only going to do this.
Right.
So what that equates to now is I would tell you no reserve, and you would say, but Letitia, that means someone could offer $1 on my house. And I'm like, yeah, Michael, it does. But here's the thing.
Right.
1,000 people are going to show up because they know that. What do we have when 1,000 people showed up? We have opportunity. We have chance. I'm not going to let your house sell for $1, but I'm going to get the frenzy and I'm going to get the whole opportunity going. So the whole point is, if you look at your life, and my book opens up with the idea that you're at an auction and you and I are sitting at an auction, you're like, what's that? And they call out lot 1 and you're like, I wonder what it is. And it's your life. And you sit there and you think to yourself, wow, these people are going to start bidding on my life. I wonder what it's worth. So then you think to yourself, well, my strategy was I would only do this or only do that. Really?
Right.
What do you think how many people are going to show up to buy it? What's your life worth? Did you cut yourself short by constantly putting a reserve on? Did you say, you know, I'm only going to go this far?
Yeah.
Because when you do that, I mean, I get the chills when I even say it. When you tell the universe, well, this is as far as I'm going. You know, you say that in your relationships.
Right.
Well, you know, I'm just going to stay in this really crappy marriage because that's as far as I can go, you know. And then if you tell yourself, well, you know, I'm just going to stay in this job even though I hate it because that's as far as I'm going to go. No, pull the reserve off. You want opportunity in life to come banging, not knocking at your door, banging and marching right through. Take the reserve off your life.
Yeah.
Is it terrifying? Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But it's no different. If you're doing it right, and you're doing it with people that know how to do it right, just like you would trust your auctioneer, you're not getting $1 for your life.
Right.
You're going through the roof. But you got to let opportunity in. And you are not letting opportunity in by saying, well, this is as far as I'm going to go.
I love it.
That's it.
Okay.
Take the reserve off.
Yeah. Speaking of relationships, you know where I'm going.
I don't know. That's not my specialty. Although this one is. Okay, good. We're going to the one relationship I can make happen.
Yeah. You married yourself.
I did marry myself.
Tell me the story.
So I actually wear this diamond ring, wear it on the other hand. I used to wear it on this hand, and then I got tired of, like, it was like a bar joke. Guys would come up to talk to me or buy me a drink. They go, oh, I didn't realize you're married. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a tricky question, yes and no. And they go, what do you mean yes and no? I go, it's complicated. They go, well, you married, you're not. I'm like, I'm married to myself. And they're like, okay, gotta go. So what it actually came down to is something, again, that I teach. There is this misnomer, and I think that Jerry Maguire and the infamous "You Complete Me" scene is just like enough to get under my skin.
You had me at hello.
Just, you know, I even use it in my presentations. I put that screen up behind me and go, don't say you had me at hello. Because the part of that is this, is that if you're seeking another to complete you, then you're out to find yourself a teacher, not a partner. You're going to get a lesson out of that relationship rather than a partner. So if you complete yourself and another individual completes themselves, then those two come together like magic, like a magic show. So the point being why I married myself. It's funny, my friends I said, hey, why don't we all get together the day before Thanksgiving? Everyone's used to getting, everyone's in town, have a cocktail. I said, let's just have a champagne over at Mountain Shadows. And they didn't know what was going on. They're like, sure. I was like, 1 o'clock, come on in. My son and my daughter, I told what was going on, and my son goes, it's really weird, Mom, because I was bored in theology class, and I went online and got ordained. And I'm like, okay, whatever that means. You're 15. But I'm actually ordained to do marriages. So he's like, I'm Universal Life Church. I'm like, okay. So my daughter knows that I love the song Livy and Rose, and so she sings it a cappella. She's amazing. So I told them what was up, and she goes, well, I'll sing Livy and Rose for everyone. And Duke goes, and I'll do the ceremony. And then my friend Jacqueline Negosian is this amazing jeweler, made me this ring. So I was like, you know what, we're doing this. So here's what we did. Everyone showed up, and you've had Oscar de la Salas on your show before. He's one of my best friends. He was my best man. He didn't know, which of course, you know, you tell Oscar, he was like, did I wear the right thing? What's going on? I'm like, and he thought, you know, maybe I was marrying my then boyfriend. I'm like, no, it's not that. In fact, my then boyfriend actually walked me down the proverbial aisle. So the point was, my son said and gathered everyone that I had been to a real shaman, a true shaman, and had a shaman soul retrieval healing, which was awesome.
Plant medicine and the whole nine?
Everything. Okay. Well, I didn't do the ayahuasca. I didn't do that. Although there is a retreat, I'd like to go do that with them. This one was without that traditional drumming meditation and deep, deep, deep trance.
Yes.
Super cool experience. And when you get those pieces of your soul back, the first thing you have to do is you're asked in deep meditation, what are you going to do to keep it?
Yeah.
And it's a question. It's kind of funny. What are you going to do to keep it? So here's what I came up with.
Okay.
Everybody was there. We set up. My son started out by saying this is in no way to denounce or demote in any way traditional marriage, but my mom is here to take a vow to herself. I explained that I'd had this shaman experience, and I finally felt like I got everything in whole back together, and I wanted to learn to keep it.
Yeah.
So my son wrote the vows, actually, and they're pretty awesome, and he explained that while we say this to another human, do you ever ask yourself, through sickness and health, through rich or poor, through good times and health and bad times, through forsaking all others, to put your soul first? Would you put your soul first? And he told me, he brought the ring out and said, Mom, just as this ring is complete and a sign of eternity, every time you're in a situation where you're kind of wondering, should I be doing this? Is this putting a reserve on my life? And like, is this going to be at what cost to my soul? He said, I want you to spin this ring and remind you, just as the ring is complete, so are you. So if that situation is making you feel like maybe you're about to give away a little piece of that, you took a vow to your soul not to give that away again.
Yeah.
And so we did. And then we sabered off some champagne and everyone loved it. And an unexpected thing happened, Michael. We all went inside and sat around and people started to go around, about 25 of us, and start to saying, what they had done at a cost to their soul, what they have done. And they thought, and there were a lot of tears. People were like, you know what? Man, I kind of need to take this vow to myself. But then Oscar posed the most interesting question of all. How do we help you keep your vow? And I said, that's a great question. And here was my answer. I said, the same way in you and Nicole's marriage, or anyone that's at a marriage, particularly a best man and a maid of honor, if they saw one of you going down the wrong path, maybe living an unhealthy life or maybe out flirting with other people, they'd probably sit you down and say, hey, what's going on?
Right.
So I said, do me a favor. If you see me out of balance, overworking, not being the right kind of mother to my children, ignoring my own health, do me a favor, take me out to coffee and sit me down.
Yeah.
And remind me that you were there and took those vows seriously. And you know what? He has.
Yeah.
He has.
Oscar's solid.
He's very solid. And
Love
he
that
caught
dude.
me when my last relationship was going down. And I definitely was at a cost of the piece of my soul.
Sure.
He caught it and said,
Yeah.
girl, I love you and I love him. But for right now, this has got to come apart. And I'm standing right here in the fire with you.
Yeah.
And I'll stand by you, but you got to stop.
I find it extremely interesting that out here in the civilian world, as I call it, that you've been able to construct an inner circle of people that committed to you, because that's something that is not rare in
Military.
the military circles that I run in, but is extremely rare out here. I was talking to a buddy of mine not too long ago, and he's having a tough time transitioning away from the uniform and into the civilian life. And he's like, man, I don't fucking get it, I was like, here's the best way I know how to put it. And I know you'll understand. The thing about us that makes it different is I don't have to find out because I already know. And that's something that, because of the way we're trained, the way we become Marines, that whole process, you get to see men, your peers, in what my dad called emotionally naked. You get to see all of you, right? Because you're forced to into these situations that don't really exist in real life, And so I find it amazing that you have that out here.
You want to know how I did it?
Absolutely.
It's kind of funny because it's if you look at the military and you look at yourselves, you all go in and you get stripped apart, okay? So you're out there bare naked, and here's what the one thing you learn about each other, that in that vulnerability, you're not alone.
Right.
In that vulnerability, someone is always going to have your back. That is the rarest thing in the world.
Yeah.
So what I did is I went out and mentored and gave away when I had nothing to give. I mentored, see now, when you say circle, I actually go against that because I tell people not to lean in. I have an issue with Sheryl Sandberg's leaning in circles. I talk about reaching out.
Sure. Yeah.
Because for me, when I was broke, living in the poverty line, I still found that I had something to give.
Right.
So I had a girl that was working in Circle K, Jenny. She's in my book. I call her my boo. She's awesome. I was broke. She was broke, but I realized she was more broke than I was, and I ended up helping her get out of Circle K and learn how to clean houses and walk dogs and doing this thing. And she's a single mom, and she became one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And so I helped her. Then there was Tamara, who was driving a forklift and had no teeth and smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And I started mentoring her. And for me, again, your word, okay? So this is the other thing that you have. In the military, your word is your bond, okay? You don't pass through all that training and make it and not quit because you know you all were in there and you're vulnerable. Right. So you know you're in the safety tree, for lack of,
Sure.
Old School is one of my favorite movies. We're in the trust tree, I love Will Ferrell. We actually went to college together.
Nice.
So my point being is that when I went to bat for Tamara, when I went to bat for Jenny, I've mentored 65 men, women, every shape, color, size, religion, ethnicity known to man, poor, rich, everything. I went to bat for them when they were at their worst and their most vulnerable when no one else would. And then when I was down to nothing, they were the first people by my side. Yeah. We basically created our own military. Yeah. Because if you're willing to look at someone that they feel they have no sense of themselves, they're in their most desperate situation, and here's the key, and this is in my book. Tamara said it best. She goes, I knew my life was going to be different and okay the second Letitia Frye believed in me. And I said, that's where the catch-22 is, Tamara, because that's not true. She goes, you didn't believe in me? I go, no, that's not what happened. What happened is the second you thought that, you started believing in yourself. And I said, what it is that we're always told it only takes one. Yeah. The problem is we were never told the one is you. Yeah. You have to. So what the military provides you that we miss in everyday civilian life, you are the one. But the best way to find that one is knowing that all those others are in it with you, and that no matter what happens, if you lose your step, they're right there to pick you up. Oh, yeah. No man left behind. So if you go out and create that in that net of people that I have, I know that there is a set group, and I'll tell you what I'm doing for my birthday month next month, because it dawned on me there's a set group of people that it doesn't matter where it is, what goes on. Yep. They will show up because they know no matter what, so will I. That's and right. I created that net. Sure. Because I went after people that most people walked right by and would never even consider. Yeah. Never. Yeah. And so one of the things I decided, I turned 50 next month in November, and I kind of thought about it. I'm all over the place on stages. Because what are you doing your 50th? What are you doing your 50th? Is it bad that I just want to hang out in my underwear and be at my pool and stay with my dogs and maybe take a 15-mile run and crack a beer and hang out with my kids? I mean, 15-mile
mile part's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's my idea of relaxation. So I don't want to do anything. Yeah, but my life is all centered around giving back. So what I did is I was on the plane after reading this. Ironically, the idea came to me. I literally wrote down, there's 30 days in November. Yeah. So I wrote down 30 people, starting with my firstborn and my secondborn all the way through to the last on the 30th for 30 days. And what I decided is I'm going to buy 30 birthday cards, and I'm going to send one every day to one of those people that says happy birthday to them. And I'm going to do a random act of kindness, something as small as maybe buying the gas can behind me or the person's gas or buying their food, to as big as going, in fact, I'm actually going to be hanging out with some veterans with PTSD. And every time I do an act of kindness, I'm going to say that person's name to that person as they do it. And then I'm going to write it in the card and sell them the birthday card. Yeah. The reason is because the happy birthday goes to them. And I'll choke up. Sorry. I wouldn't be seeing 50 without them. Yeah. So really, the birthday belongs to them, not me. Not me. And they are my crew. Yeah. They are my crew, and it grows. It's not an isolated circle. I say that because I think of covered wagons and perceived danger, whereas, in stark contrast to the idea of when you're a kid and you're told, look, pilgrims and Indians, really? What if they just leaned in, So, yeah, one of my best friends is an African-American former drug runner that is a bathroom attendant. It's now a published author, and when we're together, people are like, these two are an odd couple. My girl from Circle K, she's the best friend I've ever had. Tamara is now the executive assistant to the largest female logistics firm. She works for me. She's killing it. I love this. There's guys out there. In fact, I'm meeting with one tomorrow, Coach Marcos, that, man, and he's your age. You guys are a lot alike, former military. And I just helped him through some really dark times. And he's like, God, the last person I thought that would help me get my jiu-jitsu, everything in my mind and my children and everything in my custody together is a 49-year-old white woman, you know. I'm like, yeah, right, we hide in plain sight.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I did. So I think that the idea behind the military is ingenious, and it can be applied in life. The problem is that people, I teach in my house 2 golden rules in this house. I'm raising eagles, not doves.
Yeah.
And number 2 is there's the easy thing and the right thing.
Right.
And they will never cross. If they do, you might as well play the lottery. So most people take the easy thing. The right thing is to reach out into those other people. And when you do, because they're down to nothing and they think you believe in them, and they suddenly start believing in themselves. Here's a weird thing. Everyone I started mentoring suddenly was in the best shape of their life and losing weight. I don't talk about health or any of it. It's because one thing begets the other.
Right.
But what happened is they started to believe in themselves. So all of their decisions, from personal friendships, relationships, work, what they put in their mouth, their body, all started to change. Alignment. And that's just it. And the truth is, when they go to sleep at night, they know. The truth is, like when his husband Gary got hurt, one of the first people on the phone, what can I do?
Right.
When my former husband died through a gunshot to the head, self-inflicted, Oscar, I mean, I don't even really remember it. Oscar's like, meet me at the mall. I had to get a dress for the funeral. He had picked out all the dresses. He met me there. I mean, he was like, girl, you need to eat something. I couldn't eat, you know. He was quietly trying to tell me, you look awful. So, but here, you know, who meets you in the mall and walks you through and has all the dresses ready, and you're bawling and he has privacy for you, and everybody knows what's going on. And I mean, that's military. Yeah. You know? So yeah, I built it. Anyone can build it. The problem is, it's not by leaning in. It's not by everyone that looks like you and sounds like you and smells like you and that. Because when you guys all get in together, you're coming from all over the world, all over the country. And I mean, you're nothing in common except the one thing. Right. And then you all get bare down naked, and you realize, wow, this guy that I thought I hate might be my last shot at standing alive.
Oh yeah. You know, me and Nicole got started dating, you know, a couple of years after I left the uniform.
Those of you that don't know, she's the most badass woman in the world.
She's incredible. I mean, she puts up with my shit. So.
Yeah.
But there's all these mystery people with these weird nicknames from all over the place that have these hilarious stories. And she's like, am I ever going to meet these guys? Yeah. And a lot of them were still active duty when we got married. So she only got to meet like half the cast. Yeah. And then a buddy of mine got married in Kansas City this past winter. And so we flew out, and she got to meet my teammates from the academy and stuff like that. And she was like, you make so much more sense to me now. Yeah, exactly, right? You have to get it. You have to get it. Yeah, I mean, these are the people that you don't make excuses for. Yeah. You know, you take them as they are. Yep. You know, they're the best of them, the worst of them. It just is what it is. Yeah. You know, because you know the deeper thing. Exactly. And so that's funny. So for me, when some of my crew shows up, like after my accident, oh man, I mean, those are the darkest days ever. I had PTSD, post-traumatic. I had a TBI. It was just awful. What happened? I was hit by a car while I was running. So I went out to take a run while I was training. We all know I love running. Yeah. And I love David Goggins, by the way. And I'm a Goggins, you know, before I even read it, I just push, go, run. And I went out on Thanksgiving morning. I told my kids I'll be right back. And I was actually doing the stupid dance that you do, like waiting at the crosswalk. And this young man there were 2 cars coming 50 miles an hour down the road. So I thought, well, you know, he's not going to go. So I stepped in the crosswalk, and he looked at his watch. He was supposed to meet his girlfriend's parents for the first time on Thanksgiving at 10:30. It was 10:45. So he gunned it. And so he gunned it, and he took me up. Last thing I remember was, I hate to say it, Inverted, like the Meg. As you can tell, I love to quote movies, and they're all guy movies too. I don't do chick flicks. So anyway, the Meg Inverted. I was upside down and saw his face, and that's the last thing I remember. So I guess I bounced off the oncoming car. All I know is I smashed his windshield. I ended up on the sidewalk, and I split my head from here to here all the way across. I was a level 1 trauma, Jane Doe, side of the road. I went to the other side, went bye-bye. Yeah. I do remember that, what happens over there. Sure. Didn't want to come back. I was out cold. I'd split open my head. He had carried me over to the sidewalk. Anyway, I ended up in a level 1 trauma, and what ensued for the next 8 months, I wouldn't wish on anyone, which is why, ironically,
Tuesday of this week, I head down to Atlanta because I volunteer for all my clients. And I got a new client on PTSD, so I'm going down to hang out with a bunch of veterans that all have PTSD. And I got a look into your and their world without having to be 20, without a college education, going overseas to see this stuff. But for me, it was awful. I'd done so many events with veterans that always said were like something about everything always had to do with like, I can't go into Walmart. Well, I had my first mental breakdown in Walmart. The wells were melting.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're like holding on for dear life and thinking like, okay, it's Alice in Wonderland, or like someone drugged me or something, and the headaches are unreal, and the white light causes seizures, and it's just sucks. It's so funny because I like to go to Walmart now, and I'm like, I just leave it there. I'm like, I got Walmart.
Right.
And the reason why that is, the truth behind that is that your brain is got a traumatic brain injury, and it's overcompensating over here, so it's leaving all the other parts of the brain unattended.
Right.
And so what happens when you walk into Walmart is that you're actually, it's programmed to get your senses in, to get you to shop. So you're smelling Mrs. Fields cookies. You're seeing all the bright things of like produce. It's mapped out next to, feminine hygiene over here, guys over there. So what's happening is it's sensory overload.
Right. Yep.
And when the brain is damaged, the reason different veterans and myself have breakdowns in Walmart is because it's way too much sensory. It's sound, it's all of it, and the brain just shuts down. So that whole experience sucked, but it gave me a tremendous amount of empathy, understanding. I had an Uber driver. I'm friends with a lot of my Uber drivers. We still talk. He's a former Marine. Designs jewelry. Yeah. I'm jewelry. Sorry, you caught me when you said once and always. I'm like, we're getting married. He designs furniture with his brother, and we met in Texas, and we ended up pulling off the side of the road because he's like, wow, you actually get this. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I get a portion of it. I didn't have to. Well, that's another story about cleaning up the bloods and the brains, because I did have to do that, but which sent me back into PTSD. But I didn't have to go overseas and come back and then have my whole life fall apart and like my system's gone. So anyway, but it gave me a glimpse. My point being, in that time frame when I had seizures and vertigo, and I still had to show up to work and get on stage, whole audience is sitting upside down. I'm like sweating in the white lights. All of those people that I mentioned, Tamara, Jenny, everyone, that crew that maybe is a motley crew with a lot of different stories, were right there by my side. Literally, even physically, to catch me in case I fell and had a seizure, because I had 2 seizures on stage.
Wow.
They all were there. They showed up out of the woodworks. My attorney was one of my best friends that I married. He and his wife was there through thick and thin for me. My doctor was also one of my best friends, and I'll be honest, I hit that dark space of the word suicide in there, because what happens, and the best way for those in non-traumatic brain injury land to describe it is, it's like having twin children, and you raise them the same, and then one gets cancer. So you just move everything over to this kid, and the next thing you know, this one's robbing banks and tagging, graffiti, because you're not paying attention to it.
Right.
So what happens when the brain, I had an injury in the cerebellum in the back, everything shifts back there.
Right.
And so then all the other areas are left unattended, which includes the area that monitors depression, mood, all of that.
Right.
So it's left unattended. So a person like me, who's a constant glass, is not only half full, it's full.
Yeah.
Because there's something in it, it's full.
Yeah.
So that was a tough and interesting perspective, but also a tremendous learning opportunity, and gave me an amazing insight into understanding a lot of the people that I service in my work, which helps.
I want to go back to your shaman experience.
Yeah.
Because I did a.
Did you do one of the guided ones?
Yeah. So I did a psilocybin retreat.
Oh, okay.
Got really fucked up on mushrooms,
Uh-huh.
and we spent showed up at about 10 o'clock in the morning. We spent a good 3, 4, 5 hours getting to know each other, discussing our backgrounds and why we're here. And a lot of what I talk about with regards to our Leaders Forum and how we run that connection with intention is there's what you show up for and there's what you actually get.
The two don't meet.
And I wanted some answers as far as like the next step for my business. My son was just born, and
Dorothy went to Oz.
I was looking for fucking balance.
You were looking for the wizard.
But I'm with a bunch of dudes that self-medicate. They were smoking weed on the way up to the mansion and all that kind of good stuff. And like I'm over here like, I smoked weed in high school. And the shaman John looks at me and he's like, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, are you when was the last time you slept all the way through the night? I'm like, I can't remember. And he's like, okay, so here's the deal. When it gets hard, and it will, you just need to come back to show me peace.
Okay.
Show me peace. And just repeat it until it's not hard anymore. And so we drink the tea, right? They're doing the chants. They got the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you just kind of ease into the deal.
Oh, I get it.
But it's like the way I describe it is like the ticking of the roller coaster on the way up.
Uh-huh.
Slow.
Yeah, it seems like it's all cool. Then Alice
When you
goes
get to
down.
the fucking top, neon Rubik's cubes, just
Yep.
and then, but once you're on the ride, you can't get off.
Nope. There's no getting off, so you might as well go with it.
You
Because if
gotta-
you fight it, it's not pretty.
Yeah, I mean, and you just have to ride the ride, you know.
I was a
And,
deadhead in college.
And I mean, I'm sweating. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm working out.
Yeah,
Like it's
because you are, basically.
Yeah.
You're working out your
and,
demons, basically.
Shaman John and Mike Bledsoe, you know, over here facilitating. He's the second man in the room, and the most. I'm looking for balance, business, family, the whole thing, and it gets really fucking hard. And I'm like, show me peace, show me peace, show me peace, show me peace. I'm hyperventilating. They got their hands on my chest, like, relax, dude, you know.
Don't fight it.
And as I'm doing my mantra, what shows up is Nicole and Tristan.
Ah.
And I was like, holy, like, I got
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah.
this is everything,
Yep.
right? If the family's right, everything's right.
Yep.
And so that's what I got from that experience. And
Which is awesome.
when she showed up the next morning, she's experienced that world through me. She's not been with me on those journeys. And, opened the fucking door, bawling. And all I can say is thank you.
Yeah.
And she has no idea what I'm talking about, what I'm
Yeah.
thanking her for,
Yep.
you know. And, like, that's now the perspective that I walk through the world with.
Which
Right.
is wonderful.
So, I want to know, like, what you got from that.
So what I
shaman
got,
experience.
it's funny because I was invited to do an ayahuasca, the plant guided one, a retreat, and it's actually coming up in Mexico. I decided, I only got a couple more years, my kids here, and I said, until then, honestly, I've done so many dark journeys through the soul, and that's what I call them, a dark journey through the soul, that I'm holding off on that. But I will be honest. Hey, let's face it. I was in college in the 80s. Yeah, I've gone down the rabbit hole, let's just say. No stranger to that game. Thank you, Jerry Garcia. But this particular one is done without, you go in this room that's filled with artifacts, some that date back to the era of Christ. And they're from every religious and background. The last time I'd gone, there was one little thing from Ireland that the individuals, so basically different shamans use these different things from crosses, all the stuff. So the energy in that room is wild. But she basically uses traditional chant of drumming to get you into a state to go to the other side. And so some people, it could take hours. When you resonate on a different level, from her perspective, she studied for years and years and years in them. She said, I've never had a faster soul retrieval. P.S. They all knew your name on the other side, I'm like, well,
we shook hands once.
Well, also, I did actually go to the other, I crossed over when I got hit by that car. So I'm like, yeah, well, I've been there. So they sent me back. So for me, we went into this deep, what happens is she drums and drums and drums and drums and drums, and you got to go into this. And it's almost, I've gone through hypnosis too. It feels just like you're there and you're not there. You go down, 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 down into this elements of the soul. Then what she has to do in order to join you is that she uses a CD of other shaman drumming that's happened, and she slips that in, and she gets you're under blankets and everything, and and she gets under with you, and she goes into that chant and goes down and down and down. And it's kind of like an out-of-body experience. It's weird. She goes into her thing for what she calls grandmother. It's just like whatever she calls on the other side. She has her spirit animal that goes with her. And it's really weird. I never told her anything about myself, not a single solitary thing. So basically, after a few hours, she came back, which for her, she said again, like, man, it was fast.
Yeah.
But she said there were 3 major parts of your soul. Now, soul retrieval, sure, like anytime you have like small injuries, you know, the idea is to go on the other side and put that whole back together.
Sure.
But for me, she goes, there were 3 major parts. And she described finding, going upon and finding a piece, me, kind of like the essence of me, bent over, almost, she's like, almost violently, like being ill, like throwing up.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, well, actually, when I was 15 to 20, I was bulimic. I said, I was bulimic and anorexic, and I'm open about that all the time. I talk about eating disorders, and it was from a lot of trauma. I was, had a sexual abuse situation as a child and different things, and so it had manifested itself in that, and I was basically like dying inside. So she found that part, which I thought was so weird, and she even described it, and I'm like, I never told her anything about that. Then the next part she describes, she goes, the next one I found was heavier than that one. This one, it's like you'd been hit by a car, and I'm like, I was. Literally. And she's like, this one is injured, like on the side of the road. Then she goes, but then I found one where I didn't think I was going to be able to bring it back. It's literally dead. She goes, I had to have the other parts of you come help me with this one. This one, you lost the essence of a part of your soul. You died. And that was the death of the father of my children. And I remember I was in Nantucket when I was on the phone while his younger brother found his body. And I let out a scream. I hadn't closed the door to my inn yet. And I let out a scream, and I swear, it's summer, so it's impossible to have had like your mist, you know what I mean, in the winter when you see your breath.
Yeah.
I saw my own breath.
Right.
It was like a piece of me went out.
Yeah.
And I saw it.
Yeah.
And I let out a scream that was like a primal. They could hear it across the island of Nantucket. So much so that people called security. They came up. It was like a piece of my soul exited, because he was the best friend I ever had. And losing him was awful.
Yeah.
It was awful, you know, and in the manner that it happened too. And unfortunately for our family, you know, I'm stuck in Nantucket. I can't get to my kids, you know. Oh, it was just a disaster, because my son was on the phone. He called me and he's like, Mom, Daddy never came, because I left for the airport. He lives a mile down the road from here, and he was supposed to be there. I left at 7:30. He just comes like an hour later.
Yeah.
They're, you know, 10 and 11. They're fine watching TV and doing everything. Summertime, summer break. He never came. You know, it was 8 o'clock at night for me in the East Coast, 5 there. And then I called and gotten a hold of his little brother that had, you know, Carl's about your age, actually a little older than you now. And had him stay on the phone because he's new, and I gave him the garage code, and he had the horrible experience of finding his brother had been shot in the head. For us, we had come to find out that was a rental. First of all, my son had to find out, because I was screaming at the person that was here that got someone to come to the house.
Yeah.
And he heard me say that Steve was dead. And so my kids couldn't have their mom. They found out their dad's dead. I mean, it's a disaster. And I'm stuck in Nantucket, which you can't get off. I stayed up all night till I could get off at 4 a.m. and fly home. But the thing being is that because he was in a rental and we thought he was being evicted, we had to go clean that up. So my brother and sister-in-law started out and took up the worst of it, but I'm sure I'm talking to a veteran. I had to, and I'd seen my own brains and blood when I had my accident. But to pick up those remains and see basically a murder scene, so to speak, it's awful. You don't ever lose that, you know? I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. As did one particular moment after that day of cleaning all that up and replacing the carpets and getting the blood off the wall and all that stuff. That night, you'll appreciate this as a father, but it's hard as a mom. My son was 10, and he was crying so hard. And he said, Mom, as strong a woman as you are, and he just grabbed me. He said, how are you going to make me a man? He goes, I'm screwed, Mom. How are you going to make me a man? He honestly didn't think he could become a man. Like, he'd lost his only shot. And I looked him in the face, and I just said, son, I'm going to do it by example, and I won't do it alone. And I have. I told him a man doesn't learn to be a man by a man. A man learns to be a man by watching a good human be a good human. And that's what I've done. I've shown up. I've done everything, and I have been that man, but I also have enlisted tremendous mentors like Kurt Magnum that mentors him to help him understand from that male perspective too. But I have had the, you know, it's, my daughter was honest. She said, I kind of feel like I got the parent I needed, you know. My son, you know, it's a matter of teaching him to be a man, which makes me have to show up and be the man every day.
Yeah.
Which by definition I wish more women could, because by definition, what that's come to mean for me, I'm responsible. They were not left any money of any kind. So I'm responsible emotionally, physically, financially, and being present.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that is difficult, but in the essence of that, I have to show up every day. I have to show them. And my daughter wrote me a poem once that said, you know what, Mom, failure is actually not doing something wrong or bad. Failure is giving up.
Yeah.
And she goes, you taught me that through your accident. You taught me that through Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've been able to show my son. Son, a man means that I meet my responsibilities, that I take what is given to me, and I find the best way in which I can make my better self in this situation. And basically, I hold myself accountable for all things. And I've taught him that, and I said, and I'm kind.
Yeah.
I give back. I am not the center of the world. I can make my family the center of my world, but I must still maintain the balance of my own sense of self, health, peace, sleep, rest, and giving back. Yeah. I must show them that you must give back, even when you have nothing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been my cross to bear, and that's what I've been doing.
Okay. So when your shaman puts it all back together.
Yeah. I felt like I felt like I had a joy enema. So the way you cried when I got everything back, I went into this deep trance, and where I heard voices from the other side that said, lead. Lead. Yeah. Don't give up. Lead. And I was thinking, really? Really? You couldn't have said, like, you get a vacation, lead? Yeah. And so responsibility is what showed up for me. Okay. So the way that what you saw in responsibility, and sorry, those are my rescue dogs that have something to say. You could always let them out. The way you saw your child and your wife, and that kind of was that I almost saw a better version of myself. Sure. And so for my overwhelming experience with the shaman, as I got myself back, I felt like $1 million, but then I felt a heavy responsibility in which to keep that and to share that, to lead and move forward. Yeah. Yeah, my dogs, you might have to let them out. They're crazy. It's all right. I got a Chihuahua that thinks he speaks English. So.
No, it's really interesting because, as we run as I run our leaders forum with 20%ers, like that.
Yeah, can you tell everyone when that is? Because even when I got my email, what are the dates?
Oh, so the New Year Network, that's something that's extra special. I'll get into that. But the Leader Forum is a collective of individuals from across the spectrum of diversity, socioeconomic, entrepreneur, awesome, work from home, male, female, whatever. Perfect. The whole thing, broad spectrum. And I set the tone, I balance the frequency, because some people are coming in there having made the biggest deal of their life, and others are like, their shit's about to fall apart, right? So you have to balance the energy. And as we were driving up here, I was explaining that no matter what happens as a result of this group, this is the most important part. You set an intent. I set an intention of permission. Yep. The room needs permission for each other, from each other, to be vulnerable, to be honest.
Basically put the military in them.
To be anti-fragile, to be receptive.
But to be there for each other.
Yeah, and be grateful and understand that no matter what happens, it's coming from a place of love. And I had a moment last night in our October forum. I realized that this is what I'm supposed to do. The magic that happens in that room is my life path. My gift, my strength is community, family. When I say show me peace and I see my wife and my kid, I see family. That's the manifestation of family. That's what I've created with CrossFit PHX. That's what the 20%ers is. And I've, to include yourself at this point, interviewed some amazing fucking people on this show. And the vision that came to me was an event where a very select few, 20 people max, show up, and we facilitate this deep work on a massive level. And when you think mastermind, you know, like in the middle of June at some fucking resort, right? You know, to solve an immediate problem, set an immediate goal. I'm going to leave here and go do this thing right now.
Yeah.
The New Year Network is designed to set an intention and establish your North Star that you're going, and it's in December by design. So you're dedicating the entire year to whatever that thing is. And going back to that, that shaman, right? There's what you showed up for and there's what you get. And when you're doing that deep work, you get your blind spots get exposed. There's the things that either you don't know about or you're completely ignoring. And when you come to face with those things, you have no choice because of the collective accountability in the room to ride the ride.
Yep.
And that's what I'm putting together.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So Halloween's coming up. So, pardon me. So I'm going to share it with you because I think that when you said about 20%ers, I was thinking about you on my run this morning, the things that I think are commonality to those that become that 20%. Few things, and I'll tell you a practice I do on Halloween. Sorry. But one of the things you just mentioned already is gratitude. So for me, a certain mindset that has to happen every day is that rather than see what I don't have, I've got to be grateful for what I do have.
Right.
Because you never know what moment what you thought sucked is going to change, and you're like, oh, I'd give anything to get back there.
Right.
So gratitude seems to be the commonality I'm sure that you're going to hear from everyone. Another thing that is a complete commonality, I believe, from the people that I've looked up to and respect and sort of your 20%er idea, is that pain is part of life. It's just part of it.
Yep.
It just is.
Yeah.
But suffering is not. Suffering is man-made. So about that accountability and moving towards it, you can have pain and you can have that sort of experience of whatever that is, loss, but the struggle and the suffering through the struggle is 100% up to you.
Yep.
You know, that's optional.
Right.
So part of what I do to remind myself and hold this accountable is that for you chose December by design because I'm not really a big New Year's person, but Halloween's always been my favorite day.
Yeah.
Because for me, Halloween represents sort of death, if you will.
Sure.
So in order for something to be born, it's got to die.
Right.
So what I've done, and I did this now for about 15 years, and about 8 years ago I started with my kids, is I have a jar that says a goal is just a wish until it's written down. I used to just use a bottle till I found this thing, and it's corked.
Yeah.
And we go out in my backyard in the morning, every Halloween, we burn some sage, set some candles out, got the dogs, and we open up that jar. None of us remember what we put in that jar.
Right.
We pull it out and figure out whose writing is which, and we go out and we read them.
Yeah.
And so we read them, and if we've achieved them, we burn them in the candle.
Yeah.
If they haven't been achieved, we put them back down next to us.
Okay.
When all that's done, we go back to them and pick it up and say, does this even matter anymore? Is this still in the mix, or does this matter?
Yeah.
So the cool thing about this Halloween, there's one thing that's been put back in there 9 years straight.
Shit.
Publish my book.
Ah!
And I actually get to burn that, and it
Yes.
has maintained my North Star. So the interesting thing of what you're saying is that there's been a whole lot of things, and I want to share this with your viewers because I think they'll get this.
Yeah.
I talk about this in my book. So this practice, these rituals, if you will, to keep yourselves on the North Star, they're very important. We all get sidetracked. You know, you've got to have practices that put you back at center. People can put you back at center.
Right.
That practice, you know, all these things that get you back. So one of the things too, these ceremonies are very good because they'll keep getting you back there every year. And I'm not much of a New Year's person because I think people make resolutions, and the resolution is kind of bullshit, if you will.
Sure.
But these are like you're doing, like North Stars, actual accountability changes.
Yep.
So one of the things for me is that someone introduced me to the goddess, a Hindu goddess, Akiwan Dishavati. And it's one of my tattoos. It means never not broken. And if you Google her, you Google the goddess of never not broken. It's a great statue of her in Philadelphia, and the sun actually shines through it. She's in different pieces. The reason being is the fact that she can be broken apart into a million pieces is her greatest power. Because every time she's smashed to a million pieces, she chooses what she picks up. So if you want to know about that ceremony and you're talking about your North Star and accountability, when I got hit by the car, when Steve died, you know, anything that's happened to me, what happens is when you're smashed and you're down to nothing, it's time for some accountability.
Right.
So it's time for me to realize, hey, wine 7 nights a week is probably not a smart idea. And maybe that's standing in the way of some of your stuff. So balance, changed it. I don't drink 4 nights a week. You know, hey, how about maybe saying no to a couple of those clients because you probably need some more sleep.
Yeah.
Another one thing that happened is I used to think, because I was on a plane all the time, that I needed Ambien CR to sleep. went cold turkey, got off it. I sleep 8-9 hours a night, no problem.
Right.
No sweat with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Can't believe it. It was all self-imposed.
Sure.
So to kind of keep you on that idea, and what the sort of 20%ers are, is A, always having gratitude, B, creating ceremonies or traditions that you do that keep whipping you back into that, so you can get the North Star, because it's easy for the clouds to show up.
Right.
And then the third part in that is to understand that when you do hit those proverbial roadblocks and you get smashed, and you're in that part because you've got the person that's about to make the deal and the one that's down here about to have their life fall apart.
Yep.
I would say this one's probably in the best position, because when your life falls apart, you're in the position to actually make the most change, hold yourself the most accountable. And when you're down to nothing, you got nowhere to go but up.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
the person up here might seem like they have it. I like to remind people, guess what? That person down there probably has more.
Sure.
And if you're willing to give it away when you perceive to have nothing, you'll find out you actually have more than you ever thought.
Love
Those
it.
are kind of the tricks.
Yeah.
You know?
So awesome.
Keep you going north.
I'm excited for your book to drop.
Me too. Me too.
Really
And I'm scared shitless. Totally not. Because it's kind of one of those things. You, like you said, you're striving towards something, and you're making yourself your better self, and you're holding yourself accountable, and you're pushing yourself, and you're hitting 50, which is kind of ironic. I'm turning 50, and the book releases. We're at 2020. You're turning 50, and I'm like, and all those things. It's kind of cool, but it's also sort of like
terrifying.
It's terrifying. Yeah, it's a little bit like, wow,
Yeah.
It is a little bit like being that person watching your own show on.
You got to burn that paper.
I can't wait. The thing is, it's questions next is what's on the next paper.
Right.
That's it. What's on the next paper?
Right.
And truthfully, a lot of those things, sometimes it's a physical thing I put in there. I've always put in, to be a better parent, to keep my word, things like that I live by.
Sure.
So I would think for me, probably the next greatest challenge is to work on the development of a healthy relationship with a man.
Yeah. Cool.
I think that's probably in my next feat, is I actually would like to get back into a relationship, because I've really kind of shelved that. The truth of the matter is, I didn't want to leave my husband. There were drugs involved and a lot of money things, and I had to leave for the safety of the kids.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I never stopped loving him, and I was married forever. I didn't take that vow lightly, so I've been able to get engaged again, but until myself, I never actually could take the vow. Yeah. I think that's actually a fear of mine, and I think it's time to address it. So I think that's because talk about being vulnerable. Going into and finding and being open in a relationship is about as vulnerable as it gets. Sure. So I've been really good at hiding from that, being like, a lot of guys are like, you got a lot going on. You're very intimidating. The truth is, I'm not. Peter Parker's right there. That's just the Spider-Man image. And I would think
that's also a projection.
It is a projection, and I think the next part for me is going to be able to find not the teacher but the partner,
100%.
and that's. I definitely feel I have completed myself very much so as a whole human being, and it's time to stop hiding in the shadows.
Well, I'd love for you to come to the New Year Network. And
I think it'd be awesome. That's why I say we're going to share the dates with me and all that. Because
December 28th, 29th, and 30th. Right
here
in Phoenix at their Hermosa Inn.
I'm here.
All right.
I'm here.
For the 20%ers out there watching, where can they find you, support you?
Oh, yeah, I'd love it. So would my publisher. If you would jump on my Instagram, keep climbing on the Instagram. It's so funny. I used to
do it for the gram.
I used to be a Facebooker until I got on and mastered Instagram. Now I get on Facebook, I feel like I'm in my grandmother's closet scrapbooking. Like, what is this slow beast? And, so follow me on Instagram. Letitia is, my mom chose the Latin spelling because it means joy, so spell the word Letitia. It's Letitia. I always tell people, it's really fun to go to the doctors. I can always tell when they get to me, they go, Frye? Because no one wants to go, Letitia? Like, it's Letitia. So Letitia Frye, Frye. So Letitia _Frye, Frye at Instagram. Follow me there. I am on... sort of on Facebook. I hardly ever get on there, but it's Letitia Frye on Facebook. If you want to check out my website, it's letitiafrye.com. Tons of videos, cool things, especially on the auctiontainment, on giving back. Lots of stuff on there. And you can send me a message off of there. Hit me up. I'm also one of those people like, I'm sorry, you're not looking at an assistant or anything. You want me, you get me. Yeah. You have a question, you send me, you DM me. It's going to be me that answers. It's going to be me that shows up. So if you want any of that, have at it. It's all out there. I mean, I am an open book. Yeah. That I am.
Well, we appreciate you being your authentic self.
Thank you. It's the only thing I got.
I got it. Yeah, for sure.
It's way too much work to try to be someone else.
That's it.
It's hard enough, like being the stage persona and the everyday persona,
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure. This is an honor. A tremendous honor.
For everybody out there, the 20%ers, make sure you continue to focus on what matters: health, wealth, relationships, and time. See you soon.